Thank you for making it to my my very first spaces. Yeah, it's nice to try something different. So initially, when I was thinking about, I guess, like content creation in general, and just kind of getting involved in some of the streaming that I did last year at the start of the last season. It was a really good experience. It was really, a lot of fun to just join FPL Nim and do some content work with her. And look, at the time, I had no idea about. I was still getting to know FPL. Had no idea about sort of what that would look like and jumping on a stream and how that would feel and so I kind of went into it not really knowing what to expect. But and look, I had a lot of fun with it. Um, the time difference is an absolute nightmare. So over here in Australia, look, it's a Friday night, so I can afford to stay up late and not worry about what's going on tomorrow. But it's like 11 p.m. over here. But that's probably been the biggest struggle trying to do any content, in the past. So, yeah, it's nice to be able to do something a little bit ad hoc, and it came completely out of the blue as well. So, obviously, since the last season ended, it's been a bit of time. I've just got back from Europe, so I had a fantastic trip to London and spent a bit of time in mainland Europe as well, which was such a good. It was just such a good time to be there. So I haven't done a lot of London or the UK in general over summer. So usually when I go back, so I've been in Australia for about almost 10 years now. And every time I go back, it's usually over like Christmas and sort of winter months. And, like Christmas in the UK is completely different to what it is in Australia. I think if anyone's been to Australia, you know very well that Christmas over here is pretty much you're playing cricket on the beach in about 30 degrees of heat with probably you're probably going to a barbecue or been to a barbecue or you've had a barbecue for breakfast, and you're probably going to go for a surf, and you've got your Santa hat on. That's basically Christmas. So I usually go back to the UK around that sort of Christmas time or spring, autumn, that kind of climate. So last time I went back to Europe is basically 2 years ago, and that's when I got into FPL. And I didn't realize how much I'd missed the UK or London specifically in the summer. And London in the summer is just phenomenal. And it just reminded me of, back in the day when I say back in the day, 10 years ago, when I was in the UK and enjoying the summers over there. It's just a different vibe over there. And I definitely missed that. So this time round, it was so nice to be back home and just spend time with the family and go on this big family holiday as well. But FPL hadn't sort of left my mind during that time as well. So I think like when I'd arrived in the UK, the game had just launched, and so that was a really tricky time because I was really jet lagged. I'm still jet lagged, I was really jet lagged arriving in the UK, and then I headed off straight to the tennis. But in the background, because the game had launched, I had serious FOMO, so I was just jumping into the app and just having a play and tinkering with my team, and of course like I'd gone for an auto selected team and hadn't really sort of made any moves or anything like that. But it was just a perfect opportunity to just reacquaint with FPL again and just try and work out like what type of manager I wanted to be this season. But of course, I've got all these distractions in front of me as well, so it was really hard trying to get into FPL during a time where it was, hands on with the family, and I was heading off to Rome and Europe and jumping on this big fat family cruise as well. I think those of you that know about it know how anxious I was about this as well, because there was like 16 of us on this family cruise. So it was always going to be a bit of a challenge. And thankfully, there was a few people on the cruise who also play FPL who actually got me into playing FPL. So that was really nice to kind of have my brother-in-laws, on this cruise, and just to talk about football and FPL in between as well, especially because the game had launched. So yeah, look, I it's been a bit of a journey. So I got back from the UK on the weekend, and it's such a shame because I actually wanted to stay a little bit longer in the UK. I was actually planning to go to Fest, and that was on Friday night for anyone listening in the UK. And I couldn't make it because, I had to get back for some work. And I remember having that conversation with my business partner. She was sort of like, well, can you make it back a little bit earlier? And I was like, yeah, maybe, let me see. But it meant I had to sacrifice going to Fest on the Friday night. But I did make it to Meets, and so that was absolutely fantastic. I'm so pleased that I was able to make it to Meets. Big shout out to everyone that sort of is involved with organizing Meets, and to Nima, to Ray, to Dan, others who are involved in it. It was such a great time. I remember sort of waking up in the morning being excited about Meets anyway, because that was the only FPL interaction I was going to have in the UK. And of course, most of the people that I probably follow, I mean, there's a massive following over here in Australia, and I love that there are so many FPL managers over here, and I've been fortunate enough to meet a lot of them as well. So, big shout out to the FPL community in Australia as well. They're such a great bunch, and I think I met them at the social that we had. I think it was last year. It feels like it was the year before. I have no idea. I've like lost track of all time in the 2 and a bit seasons that I've been playing FPL. But big shout out to them. They've been such a great bunch of people to hang out with and talk to, and so people like FPL Planner, who I discovered lived in Canberra as well, which is where I was living when I, popped over to the UK during the pandemic, and discovered this thing called FPL. Yeah, look, Meets was just amazing. I'd seen it from afar. I've seen all these meets happen. I saw all these photos, especially like the group photos that were going on. And, I was super jealous, not being part of that, especially because I am from London. And so not to be able to make it over there for Meets at the very least would have been a bit of a heartache, especially after I was, traveling back to the UK after 2 years. But what a bunch of amazing people! I just had such a great time. There was beer pong, really good conversations going on outside. There was a space upstairs. Really great choice of venue and location as well. There was a bit of a discount. I think Nima sort of passed me on a bit of a discount for some beers that I was grabbing as well. So that was really handy. But yeah, no, really, really lovely vibe. Really great bunch of people. Great conversations. It's so funny because I can't really remember many names, but I remember their handles, right? Because obviously Twitter. And so I'm pretty sure I met a whole bunch of people that knew like my handle as well, but obviously I haven't seen their faces, or haven't they don't have a display picture on their Twitter profile either. So it's really hard to tell, but it was so nice to meet a whole bunch of people. And I was rocking my Matilda's shirt as well. I think I was the only person, it felt like, in London, traveling from South London to Central London, wearing my Aussie shirt. And I had so many people stop me and sort of go, good luck for the quarters, because obviously the quarters were on, the following day. So yeah, it's such a nice vibe, and like I mentioned, London is just completely different in the summer. Like having been there in the winter, and just having some of that kind of, I don't know, there's like a grey cloud over everyone's heads for some reason. And I remember that. I used to be a Londoner. I used to sort of do that London commute every day, and sort of wonder why everyone was so miserable. But no, big shout out to the Meets community, like such a great bunch of people, and yeah, really lovely to meet everyone. I mean, everyone sort of was really chill about me taking some photos with them as well. It was nice to kind of post them up, and let the guys, and the folks in Australia know that, yeah, I attended and represented the Australian Twitter FPL community as well over there. So yeah, really great time there. And they welcomed me as well. That was really nice, because there I was sitting there in my Aussie shirt. Shortly after, Australia have retained the Ashes as well. I know it's a sore topic, maybe too soon. I won't go there, but I think that's the joy of being a dual citizen as well. So yeah, I'm a bit of a I do support Australia and I do support England, and so on the weekend I'll definitely be supporting England now, much to my Australian sort of friends' dismay, I'm sure. But yeah, look, it was such a great time. I'm so glad I got to go. I had to leave a little bit early from meets, so I'm gutted I didn't get to meet a whole bunch of other people that were probably heading over to meets and then going off to fest as well. So, that's a shame. But like, again, massive shout out to Nima. As I was like leaving, I said to Nima, "Hey, I've got to go. I've got to, get home and then get to the airport." And he was like, "Oh no, we've got to take a picture." So he managed to round up everyone to take a photo, which was fantastic. So I really appreciate that. And yeah, I think we posted that picture as well. So yeah, no, thank you for that. Um, so I managed to get back to Australia in one piece, thankfully, and it was so amazing to be able to watch the quarterfinals on my flight back. And I actually didn't realize that the matches were going to be on the flight. So I was actually, I picked up my FPL journal while I was there, while I was in the UK, and it's such a great journal. Like it's so big as well. I'm probably going to sort of like record the video footage of me sort of doing this spaces as well. But I'm just holding up the FPL journal. It's actually bigger than what I thought it would be, and I actually love doing my FPL planning on post-it notes. And so, I'm instead of using the wall or like one of those whiteboards that you sort of move around different parts of your home. I actually do that where I do my FPL planning. I'm probably going to be popping it into this journal as well. So I've been using the journal. So while I was on the flight, I was like tinkering, with my team on my phone. Obviously, couldn't save anything, didn't have internet access. But then I discovered someone was watching the Australia match on their screen, and so I tuned in, and then one by one, all the people that were around me and around this other person started tuning into the World Cup football. And so it was so nice to see so many screens on and just showing so much yellow on the screen as well, with everyone cheering. And there were a couple of moments where, like, I think I had my noise cancelling headphones on, and so I was saying things out loud, not really realizing where I was, fully immersed into the screen. And it was so nice to see so many people tuning in and just kind of getting in on the action as well. So yeah, really fantastic. But I was really gutted that they didn't show any FPL match, sorry, any Premier League matches at all on the flight. So there I was thinking, yep, I've had my dose of the World Cup, and maybe just maybe there'll be some Premier League action going on as well. And by this point, I have no idea what time zone I'm in. So I think, like, obviously when I set off, I was in London and I was heading towards Singapore, and that was a good 12-hour flight. So that's 12 hours of potentially watching maybe one or two matches. I think I could have caught, especially with the time difference and all of that. But I arrived in Singapore and I think there was a match going on, but I didn't have a long enough layover. So I'm like looking at the scores and trying to work out, what's happened. Obviously, because I've set and forgotten my team and missed all of the leaks that came out, which is really funny because I was like, I remember sort of having a chat with Andy so Andy North at Meets, and he was like, "Oh, you locked in with your team?" And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, I was definitely locked in last night." And probably a good shout because I'm going to have a couple of beers. God knows what's going to happen after that. And it's probably going to be a mad rush when I get back home and go to the airport. So, yep, I've set my team. I'm going to forget about it now. And then I heard a rumor about like Archer going somewhere, and and so I was like, oh shit, I'm going to have to look at my team again. So I started looking at my team, and in between all of that, by the time I'd got home and jumped in the car to go to the airport, I heard about Stones. And I remember I was messaging like one of my friends, and I said to I said to him, "So I think Stones is going to be out. Do you think I should change to someone else?" And at this point, I was thinking, is it going to be Diaz? Is it going to be Walker? Who bloody knows, right? Because Pep. And so I think I'm only like 10 minutes away from the deadline, expecting servers to crash and shit to happen because it always does. And I'm in the car, and I realized that my signal was really poor as well. So I ended up making a transfer from Stones to Walker. Now, I don't know if Walker is the right sort of right City defender to have right now. But I have seen a rumor that that Diaz might be out and Stones is still out injured. So maybe it was the right call. Who knows? Who knows? And look, and then it was the same with Saliba and Gabriel. So I'm actually going to blame Ray for this. So or not blame because who knows? Like Gabriel might sort of come through in the end. But I actually brought Saliba in my team before I went to meets and thought, yeah, this will be a differential, good shout. Looked at the stats, looks really good. There wasn't anything suggesting that I shouldn't go Saliba. And then I had a really good conversation with Ray, and I'm going to give a shout out to Ray as well, who's been a bit of an inspiration. Actually, fully inspired by his suggestion of trying out spaces and doing something like this. So thank you so much, Ray. It started off as a joke and a great conversation, and conversation about Arsenal players, and it ended up being a really useful conversation about Gabriel and Saliba. And so I switched over. I switched from Saliba to Gabriel, thinking, "Yep, this is a great idea." Go back to Gabriel because bandwagon, everyone's going Gabriel, and the template was pretty strong on Twitter as well. So, but I do appreciate it because I think when you're playing FPL, like in my case, I'm playing FPL for my third season now. Half the time, you just don't know which way to go. So, and given I had 6 weeks in Europe and just kind of mooching around with my family, just kind of not really doing too much. I was being pretty lazy over there, and thanks to FPL Twitter, I was able to kind of go and look up what the strongest template was, and started seeing a bit of a pattern there. And I saw Gabriel there for the first time, and thought, yeah, I'll go Gabriel, and then switched to Saliba, and here I am sitting there with Gabriel, and then. I think by the time my phone had signal again, I saw that Gabriel was not starting. And so I remember sending a message to Ray saying, WTF. But hey, look, I'm gonna stick with Gabriel. I'm gonna stick with the choices I've made. And I think that's just like how I like to play FPL as well. Sometimes you've got to just commit and not look back too much and sort of think about your choices too hard as well. You can't really control it at that point either. So I think like when the deadline had passed and I discovered that Gabriel wasn't starting, I just thought, yeah, no, you know what, it's okay. What's the worst? What's the worst that can happen? And it is what it is, really, in that situation. So yeah, look, I've got Gabriel. I'm really hoping he starts on the weekend. Or is it on Monday? I'm not sure because of the time difference. I'm never sort of clear on what time these matches are going to be on. So hopefully over this game week, Gabriel does start and he shines and comes through. But in terms of like my previous game week, I look. I went with Pickford in goal. I think most people did. Most managers went with their 4.5. I think those that didn't, like kudos to you, because I think those that went Leno and Johnston and or Onana. I know Onana is like a 5 mil goalkeeper, but yeah, look, I really went for Pickford purely because of the fixtures and slightly hoping that Dyche will come through with his defense as well. So yeah, that didn't really work out. I think, I don't know, it seemed like a bit of a clumsy goal, but yeah, look, 2 points from Pickford. Gabriel came on for his 1 pointer, which I didn't really mind because I had Chukwuemeka. I'm going to absolutely mess up that name, but I had the 4.5 Chelsea mid sitting on my bench anyway. So look, if Gabriel didn't start, then it would have been a 1 pointer from old mate there, coming on for a 1 pointer. So yeah, it doesn't really matter. Estupinian, of course, he did really, really well. Really glad that I brought him in the team. Today was a bit touch and go. I think when I saw Twitter, I was like, for fuck's sake, what do you mean he's injured? What the hell could be going on with these bloody defenders, right? James is injured, maybe injured. I'm not too sure. But Estupinian, and I think I saw like FPL Joe. I think he sort of pronounces his name when he put it up on on Twitter. I was like, well, thank fuck for that. Because there's nothing worse than having a Stupinian off injured as well, especially because I've got Walker. And I have no idea if Walker's going to start either. So I've got Gabriel that is potentially a non-starter. I've got Walker that could probably not start as well because Pep. Estupinian who could be injured as well. What the fuck? Um, I think my only reliable defender right now is Chilwell. And that too, right? So shout out to Ellie. Thank you so much for suggesting I go back to Chilwell because there I was sort of going, yeah, you know what? Everyone, the Twitter template is saying Chilwell, so I'm going to go James. Why not? You know, be a little bit different. And then I'm chatting to Ellie about it, and she's like, well, I reckon you should probably go Chilwell because James is quite injury prone. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah. And I think FPL Planner has this sort of no transfer list or something. I can't remember the exact list name, but I think everyone should have a list that basically says do not transfer these players. And it's really funny because I use notes on my phone, and I usually jump in there and just pop in a couple of notes about players that I don't want to touch. And James was one of them from season one. And so but I obviously didn't scroll down to my season one notes. What I, note to self, what I probably need to do is copy and paste my ban list from each season and bring them all together in one, in one place. So I have that all in one place to refer to. But yeah, Ellie, thank you so much for suggesting I go back to Chilwell. So I've got Chilwell. So James, if you do have a hamstring injury, I'm really, really sorry, but fuck you as well. I'm so annoyed that 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 happens as well because back of my mind I was thinking, do I go Gabriel to James, right? Because again, that was the typical transfer everyone was thinking about as well. It was like, well, who do you switch Gabriel to? And it's not too late, right? Like, so we've got, I don't know how many hours. I think the deadline over here is 3:15 a.m. and there's no way that I'm going to be waking up at 3:15 a.m. So if there's any leaks to come, anything to come, I really need to know those things now, basically. So yeah, look, I've decided to stick to Gabriel. I'm not going to switch over. If I was switching over, because I have zero point 0.5 in the bank, I probably would have gone over to James, but decided not to. But I also made some really curveball decisions on the last day as well. So, just before the deadline, I think it was like, I don't know, 5 minutes before the deadline. So I've already sort of managed to transfer out Stones and bring in Walker. I've saved my team. And just because I love living on the edge, I was like, maybe I should move Eze off to Martinelli. So right at the last minute, I'm taking out Eze, shifted over to Martinelli, and so that left me with zero point 0.5 in the bank. So in my mid, I've got Salah, I've got Martinelli, Rashford, and Saka, and of course, old mate 4.5 from Chelsea as well. So there's no way I was going to play him, right? So yeah, look, Salah got an assist, happy with that. Could have been a lot better, but he's got Bournemouth next, and yes, I will be captaining Salah. Martinelli got the cheeky assist as well. Really love that from Martinelli. Fantastic. Rashford, look, I'm so glad. Where to start with this? I'm a Liverpool supporter. I'm not going to go off on one about Liverpool and the rivalry between Liverpool and United and all of that. But United have been playing really, really well. You won't hear me say that very often, but United have been playing really, really well. And so, to see them, that was such a boring match. I can't even explain to you how boring it was watching that. I think I got up at like 5:30 in the morning to watch that. Um, and because I'm jet lagged, not because, I like waking up that early and just watching matches. I know many Aussies do. But yeah, I got up early to watch that. And even with the jet lag, so noting my jet lag's keeping me awake, I was falling asleep watching that match. I have no idea what was going on in that match, but I'm so glad that I only went with Rashford in the end and not Bruno as well. But the Bruno FOMO was really, really strong. There were a couple of moments where I was like, do I spend the extra point 0.5 mil and go and get Bruno instead of Martinelli? But look, I'm glad that I went Martinelli in the end. And even now, if I didn't have, the slight concern about Gabriel not starting and Walker, God knows what, and Estupinian, thank fuck he's playing. If none of those things were happening, I probably would have transferred out Rashford and gone for, someone else. I have no idea who. I think, I had a little bit of FOMO with Madison as well. Like Madison played really well. Although someone pointed out his heat map on Twitter, and I was like, yeah, it's not that bad. But yeah, no, I see your point. Still a lot that we can learn as well from the next, couple of game weeks anyway. But yeah, Madison's definitely on my shortlist at the moment of players that I'd be interested in bringing in. But yeah, I almost sort of switched out Rashford this week as well. But look, up front, like everyone, I've got Haaland. I think that's a bit of a no-brainer. I think everyone's got Haaland, it feels like. No idea what his EO is, but I remember his EO being phenomenal last season, so there was no way I was going to go without him this time. And captained him too, so, grateful for that. I think those that captain Saka, well done as well, because that is fantastic. Like he did really well. There would have been, I'm not sure what the difference would have been. But yeah, good shout with Saka as well. Salah obviously was always going to be a bit tricky. I mean, Chelsea have had some really good transfers, and I'm not going to go there. It's too soon, to talk about Casado and Lavia, and just not going to touch that. And I'm sure Ellie's listening to this, thinking, yeah, really, really excited about those transfers. But yeah, we're pretty screwed with not sort of bagging those two. But I don't think we were in the running for that, so I'm not going to talk about it too much. But yeah, it is what it is from that point of view. Um, but I've also got João Pedro up front, and honestly, not much is going to change, I think, between the team that I've got right now and what I'm sort of considering moving forward with into game week 2. So, game week 2 at the moment. So actually, I didn't talk about my bench. So on my bench, I actually brought in Turner. I have no idea about Turner's stats or anything like that. All I know was that he was going to be starting for Forest, and is probably a good shout to have as a 4 mil goalkeeper. I honestly didn't watch the Forest match, so I'm not sure what to expect from that. But I'm going to be playing him this game week, like many other FPL managers, I'm sure, who have also got the Pickford Turner rotation between them. It looks pretty good. Here's hoping. I was really gutted that I didn't go with Onana. I think I think there was a moment where I was thinking Onana, and I think I posted up a couple of drafts before the deadline for game week 1, and he was in them. And yeah, I don't know. I think there was a part of me that was thinking 4.5 goalkeeper versus a 5 mil goalkeeper. Not really. We don't know too much about how he's going to be in the Premier League as well. So I decided not to go there. But look, I'm happy with the Turner Pickford um, rotation. Let's see how that works out. But I'm going to be starting Gabriel. After all that, I feel like I should just hold on to him and just hope for the best. Yeah, so I'm going to be starting Gabriel. Again, Estupinian's going to be starting in my team. Chilwell, Walker, they're going to be there because I've got Baldock on the bench, first bench now as well. Because given that they're playing Forest as well, you never know. And in case one of the other players that I've got as well, so I'll have Martinelli, Rashford, Saka, and Salah in my mid, and João Pedro and Haaland playing up front. Um, but look, I've decided to captain Salah. I think there's many FPL managers who do have Salah and do have Haaland, and they're still captaining Haaland. And I get it because it's Haaland, right? And we're all afraid of Haaland. And I have to admit, I was more afraid of not owning Haaland or not captaining Haaland towards the end of my season last season, or even sort of midway through, actually, where there were a couple of moments where I was like, yeah, I'm going to live a little. I'm going Captain Kane, and I did. And I got absolutely scolded for that as well. I was so, so annoyed that I went there. but also it was so funny, like to even think that I could bet against Haaland like that. And to be fair, like Kane, Spurs had a decent match, and Haaland was playing. Um, Not necessarily an easy team. I can't remember who it was, but I learned from that not to sort of bet against Haaland when it comes to some of the easier teams. You just don't know when he's going to bag a hat trick, and he did. I think that weekend he bagged a hat trick. But look, this time round, it's earlier on in the season. I managed to finish on I think it was 79 points. If I have a quick look at my team, yes, I finished on about 79 points. I don't know I didn't know what to expect actually from the first game week. I think last season, I sort of started the season around 600k or so. So this time round, I'm about 800 and 860,000, something like that. And my first season, I can't even remember. Like I was playing my triple captaincy in game week 2 because didn't have a clue about FPL at that point. But I'm pretty sure I was pretty. I have no idea where I was. But I finished that season around 190k after I realized that these chips are there for a reason and I can't keep using the chips as well. So yeah, here's to learning more about FPL in the last couple of seasons. Last season, I finished 2.5k, which was a stark contrast to where I finished in my first season. Um, I I do have a goal for this season, so I think like what I've tried to do each season so far, especially last season, I've decided, that I should try and aim for like a top 100k or 200k, and I think that's what my goal was last season. After I finished 190k my first season, I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to try and finish around, top 200k or something like that. So I pleasantly surprised myself, with the way I was playing because I wasn't overly thinking about my transfers. In fact, I was traveling around Peru for at least sort of 4 weeks during last season where I didn't have any signal, especially when I was, hiking Machu Picchu and doing the Inca Trail, and I didn't have any signal. So I was like making, transfers based on gut feeling and what I thought, would be best based on fixtures and previous sort of game weeks and existing, sort of available stats that I had. Um, it wasn't often that I was able to look at Twitter either. So yeah, it was pretty difficult to actually keep track of that. But if anything, that helped me to be the type of FPL manager that sort of plays a little bit more fearlessly as well, and doesn't overthink my transfers. I remember sort of when I did eventually get onto Twitter and I'd posted my team, someone sort of tweeted at me saying, "Oh, James is injured." See, I did own James last season. I obviously didn't learn from my first season. So I think someone messaged me and said, James is injured. Why are you playing James? And I was like, well, I've not had signal, and who cares? Because that's why you have a bench. So I really enjoyed playing FPL last season, and I think the way I was playing was to just commit on the transfers that I was making, and not to think about the decision. Like to focus on the decision making process a lot more than sort of what the outcome is going to be, because you can't control the outcome, right? And it's so obvious. Like we all know this. We've heard this a million times. We hear so many content creators talk about, the playing your game your way and sort of, make the choices that you want to make and all of that jazz, right? And it's beautiful to hear. But when it comes to making a decision and you really don't know and you've really not had time to research, you are depending on other people, and how they're making their choices. But everyone's teams are different. So I get it. You can't really sort of pick a player based on someone else's, team, and also planning as well. So, I try and plan at least 2 or 3 game weeks ahead, and sometimes longer. Again, I think I was having a conversation, I think Ellie was with you this morning or something, where I was having a conversation about, I'd love to have 2 free transfers going into game week 3. And then wouldn't it be amazing to have, 2 more transfers if I roll again, barring that, none of my defenders, fall apart. It seems like it's only the defenders at the moment, but you never know, right? But yeah, wouldn't it be amazing to come back from the European sort of break and I think game week 5 or something and have 2 free transfers then as well. So yeah, I think like last season, I really learned to be patient and to stand behind my decision making process and not sort of overthink the transfers that I was making. Um, Go on, X vibes. You look at the data. Like I love data. I love looking at data, and I'm not going to talk about it in these sort of the ramblings that I'm going to do with the with spaces. That's if I do another one. It depends entirely on whether this has worked out or not. So I don't know. Give me a heart, smile, or whatever, or leave a comment if you're listening to this afterwards. If you like this type of content, because it's totally off the cuff. I've not thought about it too much. It's just ramblings, and these are the types of ramblings that I'll either be having with myself or with friends or family, or actually, typically with myself and my post-it notes. So yeah, thank you. I'm seeing them coming through, so I really appreciate that. But yeah, look, I want to play fearlessly this season as well. So I'm not going to be captaining Haaland this game week. And, I'm fully sort of behind that, committed to it. I'm captaining Salah. I've got a good feeling about Salah. Um, Not necessarily because he came off really angry and frustrated in the last week. Not just because of that, but I think I caught Klopp's presser just before starting the spaces. And I think he mentioned something about Salah having a really good training week. So I'm counting on that. Just don't overtrain, don't pull a hamstring, just like the bloody defenders are doing at the moment. Take it easy, like the Salah meme that I'm talking about, or the GIF that I'm talking about. Take it easy. So I'm hoping that he'll do okay on the weekend. I am betting against Haaland. I am putting my vice captaincy on Haaland just in case Klopp decides to throw a curveball and not play Salah at all, because I don't know, crazy shit can happen as well. So yeah, look, I'm going to be playing Salah captaincy and hoping that he bags a goal and an assist, and anything more is a bonus, really. Yeah, look, my bench is not that strong. I've got Baldock on my first bench. Old man, 4.5 mil from Chelsea. Sorry, I'll learn how to say his name. You know which one I'm talking about. And I've got Mu Bama as well. I really don't think he played in the last game week, but who knows, right? Like he might sort of come on or something, and hopefully, I won't need to go to my third bench though. So here's hoping that none of that drama happens. But yeah, like I said, I'm probably going to be playing a little bit more fearlessly. I think if you want to captain anyone other than Haaland, then now's definitely the time to do it. If you don't have Salah, what the fuck? But if you do have another Liverpool player, you should absolutely be playing Liverpool players. I know that there's a lot of conversation about who's going to be starting and whatnot. I've got a funny feeling that Darwin's going to start up front this time. I think it's his kind of a fixture to start as well. So, and it's a home fixture as well. So, yeah, look, I reckon Darwin would probably start up front. So if you have Darwin, play him, maybe even captain him. Be brave. Yeah, so that's my team going into game week 2, and that's probably enough of me rambling as well. It's been about 40 minutes or so. I really appreciate everyone that's turned up for my first spaces. I'm not entirely sure what I was expecting from it. I think when I was talking to Ray about this, I said to Ray that I do love talking about FPL. Like I've only sort of met FPL or sort of learned about FPL over the last couple of years, but I really enjoyed it. It's the type of game that I didn't realize that I would enjoy so much. I work in the design and strategy space, and I do a lot of like scenario testing, and a lot of work with organizations around how they can use data as well to make decisions and learn from previous experiences, and how they're sort of operating and whatnot. And it's no different to how FPL works as well. And largely, it is a guessing game. And so, you can use data, you can use previous sort of, the eye test that you've done, and you can look at the fixtures and sort of extrapolate based on everything that you have in front of you and still get it wrong. And so, look, despite all of that, here I am coming into season 3, still enjoying it, loving the energy from the FPL community over here in Australia, and those that I've met in London as well. Thank you, and a huge shout out to Meets as well. So glad that I met everyone there, and also FPL Twitter community. So yeah, thank you to all of you as well. I've learned a lot from all of you in some shape or form. I don't think you can ever be an expert in something like FPL. There's no such thing as being an expert. If anything, you should be a life learner. There's always something that you can learn. And I'm constantly learning and I'm constantly proven wrong as well. So, it's great to have strong opinions, but hold them fairly loosely as well, just because, there's that element of surprise as well. So, yeah, so I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Um, Thank you to everyone that's tuned in. I do appreciate it. I'm not sure if I'm going to do another one. I'd love to. And, based on some of the responses I've had, I reckon yeah, this could be a regular thing. I don't know how regular though. So one of the reasons why I, sort of pulled out of doing the late show with Nim was purely because of time and commitment and also the time difference. And so it's always a challenge. So I think doing something like Spaces where I can also record it, maybe even record a video and pop it up somewhere is gives me sort of a little bit more flexibility as well. So I wanted it to be low maintenance, fairly simple, impromptu, off the cuff, and bunch of ramblings. So look, today's one, I'm probably not going to open it out to everyone else that's listening to become a speaker. I haven't quite worked that out yet, but also B, I want to be able to invite some guest speakers as well if I do another one, and if it sort of continues, it'll be wonderful to actually have a bunch of people speak and sort of have a conversation and have some topics to discuss as well. But for my first one, I really wanted to just say hello and welcome to my third season, but also just to have an opportunity to chat to you all about some of the thoughts I've had about the clusterfuck of the game week 1 of trying to get to the airport and make some of those the moves that I had to make, and hope for the best for game week 2. And of course, good luck to everyone as well. So yeah, thanks again. Thanks for tuning in. And hopefully you'll catch me on the next one.